guys, welcome to another episode of Single in Sunday School. It's your host, Ashley and Cody Page, aka Ashberg and Cocoa Puffs. Those are our munchies nicknames. We are going to be talking about online dating this week. Woo! You excited, Ashley?
It's my favorite topic. I mean, honestly, it actually is one of my very favorite topics.
I always joke with people, my two favorite topics are religion and sex. So, ta-da! There you go. I am 34. Sure on point for my age demographic. Anyways, we figured since we're single in Sunday school that we would discuss the single side of things, which has a lot to do with dating and dating apps. So, for me, I wanted to know, Ashley, I've been curious about this. What do you look for on the dating apps? Or why did you choose dating apps? First of all, why did you choose to get on dating apps?
Well, there's not a mid-single scene in my area. So in the Boise area, well, there is now. They've actually structured it. But when I was first single, that wasn't really a thing. And so I went to a couple single adult activities, and a lot of the single adults were in their like 60s to 70s. And I was like, oh, this isn't the place for me to find love. Like my mom, totally, I could send her. But that was not for me.
You don't want to date someone that could be your father? That's not your... Okay, wait, that's actually a really good question.
We'll get there.
Moving on.
Moving right along. 60 plus is a little older than my normal demographic. I usually cut it off around 50.
Okay.
And so it was like, okay, well, where am I going to meet people? I'm not going to go to bars and meet people there. I'm not going to like go to clubs. And I'm not 22, so I'm not just going to like bump into some hot young thing at the grocery store and be like, I'm single, can't you tell? Right? Because when you have like a kid with you, people just assume you're a married mom. True. And more often than not, I have a kid with me. So
yeah, valid.
So it was pretty apparent to me that dating sites were going to be the way I dated. But that was scary to me because dating apps weren't a thing when I was single. Were you married before, like Tinder and all?
Yeah. I never got on Tinder. I got married in 2012. So okay. I think Tinder started in 2012 or something.
Yeah. So we got married the same year. I just had never done any of that. And so I was just like, well, let's see what this is like. And it was terrifying. How about you? What made you choose online dating?
Oh, man. Terrifying is the right word for it. When I got divorced, we decided to separate in March of 2019. And then when I moved to Utah in November of 2019, I was hanging out with a friend of mine who had been a single mom. She had since then been remarried. And she was gung-ho to get me on those dating apps. So, like, from November to January, she was just, like, push it. She was like, get on. And, like, I remember we were at, like, a bouncy place with our kids. Yeah. And she was like, just create the profile right now. And I was like, fine. Like, just help me. Like, and so she held my hand and helped me and really pushed me to get on them. And I was fortunate enough. I was so clueless, Ashley. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, when I watch other people that are able to flirt after divorce, I'm blown away. Like, I'm like, I don't know how you did that. Because to me, flirting was just insulting people. Because for 7 years, I was super loyal to my ex-husband. And I didn't flirt ever. The only time I was even, like, making eye contact with men, which I rarely did, was when I did photography, and I would like make fun of the husband for throwing a fit that he was missing his football game. And I was like, oh, we'll get you back to your football game. You just like, you poor, and then they would laugh and I would take their picture. Like, that's all I knew how to interact with men. So when I got divorced, I was working at Texas Roadhouse, and one of the Gen Z kids was like, why don't you go flirt with your table? You've got 4 guys at your table. They're all about your age. Go flirt with them. I was like, okay, I can do this. So, like, I go out to the table and I insult each one of them. And, like, their mouths, their mouths, like, dropped. They were like, they didn't know what to say. It was not cute. And I turned around and I was like, I'm broken. Like, I went back to like the back of house, and I was like, y'all, like, I'm broken, I don't know how to flirt. And like they had to teach me like how to respond to a text, how to respond on dating profiles, because I was so clueless. I literally had no idea. And I learned from the masters, which are Gen Z, because they grew up like with dating apps. So if you need help, turn to a Gen Z, because they are it's like they're artists. They're amazing.
100%. I didn't have a Gen Z friend, but I had my friend Nicole. She had been single, a single post-divorce mom, like at the height of dating apps, right? So she kind of was the person who held my hand and was like, here's how to make a profile. You should do it. And I remember being like, I don't know, it feels so weird. And she was like, just do it. And so I did. And I'm glad I did. It was so much fun.
Similar.
Yeah.
Our friends being like, shut up and get on the dating apps.
Yeah, just get on them. And it's like, you realize quickly into it, you're like, oh, because this is how people meet each other now. Like,
you're right. Yeah. I was at the grocery store today, and this guy and I kind of did this like looking at each other thing and walking past each other. He was so cute. He's getting his I like purposely picked the self-checkout that he was near after we'd had this encounter. I was too shy to make eye contact, of course, because I'm still like, it's so hard. And then I like laughing about this because I was scanning things out, and he started singing a song as he was walking past me. Like, we were interested in each other, and neither of us made a move. We couldn't. How do you do it? Do you know how?
That was his move. Just sing a song.
Oh, I know that song you're singing. Not really, but that's a great song. You got a great singing voice. Hi, do you want a date?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Cody Page. I'm the one who was avoiding eye contact with you in the produce. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, part of me second guesses whether or not they're interested, right?
Yeah.
But like, he started singing.
I always second guess if they're married or not, because not all married people wear rings. And then I don't want to be that girl who's like, hey, daddy. Hey, daddy.
Hey. I know. I don't either.
Because unlike you, I will make eye contact. I will purposely make eye contact and be like, you're mine. But then again, it's real awkward if they're married and you don't know, because
and they don't wear a ring.
Yeah. You've got to signify to people. Yeah.
I know. I agree with you. I really think more than ever, now that there's more divorced people, more than ever, it's like, can we just all just wear a wedding band if we're married and if we're not? Like, because it's not fair for us, like, to go, I don't know. Dating apps, it's easier because when you match, it's like, oh, I am interested in you. That's what this match solidifies. But in the grocery store, I'm like, I don't know. Are you singing just because you're weird? Or are you singing because you want my attention? Like, and then I just stand there and keep scanning, and I don't know, like, what to do. So it's like, it's impossible for me to find a date outside of online dating unless it's like a group activity. This is the only other thing I would consider is like a group activity, a singles ward, and you add them on Facebook, invite them to a friend activity, get their number, one of those steps in and out of order, whatever it might be, and you start flirt, and then they ask you out on a date. That's the only other way, because just, a meet cute that would have been anything for thousands of years, any meet cute we've had for thousands of years, we're not doing anymore.
We're not. Yeah, it's just not. Meet cutes are all online, which is fun because then I guess you can have documentation of it.
And I do. I always screenshot them. Every guy I've dated, I'm like, 100%. Here's our initial. Yeah, I know.
And like the minute you delete that, you're like, I'm really done with you. I've got no hope that this is going anywhere.
The documentation has been removed from my phone. We're done. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. So what do you look for on dating apps? Like, when you're swiping, what are you looking for?
Are you asking like what my type is? Are you asking what? Because I don't necessarily go into it like looking for. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, how do you handle dating apps? Yeah. Like what? What's your process?
So you start with the face, right? The first picture, and you're hoping it's a good one, and you're hoping there's not a sister who's questionably a wife, right? Yes. And so, I go in looking, and this isn't on purpose, but most of the time I match with tall, dark-haired, light-eyed, dimples, and a killer smile. every time. Every time.
They always have dimples.
They almost always have
Oh
dimples.
my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't date guys with dimples.
That is like a genetic deformity that I'm all about. I'm like, yeah, give me them dimples. Like, yeah, it's horrible. And they all have it. Anyways, that's fine. And then, you start to
men
look
with
at the
dimples
profile.
out there. Ashley's coming for you.
Dark hair, light eyes, dimps. I've
Go sing
realized,
at a grocery store.
and even my ex-husband met that criteria. Like,
Wow.
seriously, I didn't
Really?
realize I was always in love with Prince Eric as a child. Like,
Oh my
I wanted
gosh.
to be a
Same.
part of Prince Eric's
Oh,
world.
yeah.
I
I'd
went
give
and
up my
saw the
voice.
new. Yeah, I went and saw the new Little Mermaid last week, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, this is the problem." Oh, this is why. This is what I've always wanted. Oh, okay. Oh, got it.
I even told you I love the name Eric because of Prince Eric. Like,
Yeah.
that name is just a great name. Like,
I mean, I'm okay without it, but
yeah. See, I'm still turned on by that name because of Prince Eric on Ariel. I'm like, oh, it'll always be something for me. Anyways,
I mean, not so
So
much
you
for
have-
me.
so when you're swiping,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have something you're looking for, but you end up with the same sort of.
Absolutely.
looking
In fact,
guy.
sometimes I'll get on there and be like, I'm going to go for someone like off the cuff. This isn't going to be my norm.
I'm gonna go wild. He's gonna have blonde hair and no dimples.
Right.
Woo!
Right. But then if he doesn't necessarily match that, he usually matches the personality profile that I end up with, which is like wildly passionate about some quirky hobby. And like funny and sarcastic and decently informed about the world. That's like,
Fair.
and so I can usually tell in a profile as I'm like scrolling through, right? You get the picture and then you're like, oh, okay, they're cute. So you scroll up. And from there, it's like, is there anything that tells me, one, are they married and in an open relationship? Because I can't do that. That's not my life. Two, are they polyamorous in any other form? Because that's huge in Boise. I don't know if that's as big down there, but like
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Boise and the polys are all over it. And then from there, it's like, do they seem like decent humans? And that's like the bare minimum.
Does
I
he
want
look
you to
like a murderer?
Yeah, I mean, does
No,
he
really.
for real. Safety is like paramount for me before I ever
is.
go on a date. Yes. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to end up on Dateline. You
Oh my
know?
gosh.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I
It's
mean,
real.
that's like the number one thing. Like I said that to a guy the other day. I was like, the number one thing for women is safety. That's what we're always like, how can I do this in the safest way possible? And I always say, meet them in public first, like at
Yeah.
the bare minimum, meet in public. I mean, I've had guys offer to pick me up. I've had guys be like, let me just come over and hang out, or you can just come over. And I'm always like, I have to meet you in public first. Like, I just have to. And if they push on that, to me, that's a weird
That's a red
sign.
flag.
I'm like, you don't want to meet me in public? Like, I had a guy get really upset at me because I would not let him pick me up and he wanted to take me to a party. And he was brothers with a guy I knew on my mission. So, like, I could have been like, oh, well, you're friends with... And I was like, nope, my gut is screaming right now.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine went on a date with him and validated those feelings. And she was like, yeah, this guy was a bit sketchy. And I was like, okay, like, I have to trust my gut no matter what.
Yeah.
When I don't listen to my gut, that's when problems arise. So,
Dude, and I tell you, I think that's true when I'm on the apps. Like,
yeah.
I think that you can listen to your gut or the spirit or whatever you're wanting to call it and be
Right?
like, maybe not this. Yeah, this could be a good one. Explore this. Not that one.
I get when I ignore that, I will then fall prey to their charm and their like how good looking they are, and
Yes.
and then I'll just be like, I'll ignore the signs. So if if I listen to the spirit right away, I'm good. But sometimes I'll try and talk myself out of it because I'm like, oh, I need to like be more kind and understanding. I'm like, nope. Like Heavenly Father reminds me all the time, you are not in charge of those boys' feelings. Like, that's not your job. You're not their mama. I'm just not in charge of the men's feelings on dating apps, which I wanted to ask you. When someone matches with you,
Yeah.
what is your process like? Like, do you go on a date with them right away? Do you feel like you want to talk for a while? What do you do?
I want at least like a day of texting. I want to get to know baseline if you're a decent human. And then yeah, I like to set up a date, but it's because between my child schedule and my work schedule, I'm usually not available for 3 to 4 more days. And so I want them to ask me on a date and me be like, hey, I'm available on Friday the 15th. And they're like, oh, it's the 11th. I'm like, that's what I got. Or I've got the 22nd, you know, and that's legit what it's like. And so if they set up the date and then we talk for the days leading up to it, I usually can have a vibe of like, I should go on this date or, you know, and then sometimes, and I usually will go on the date because there's usually not much harm in a first date. Like, I like a super casual first date. I don't want to go to a meal. I don't want to necessarily like go to a movie. I just want to meet somewhere like a coffee shop that's super low key. I really like coffee shops too because they always ask why I don't order coffee. And then that's like, if we haven't already had the Mormon chat, then we have the Mormon chat. That's the other thing. I never date Mormon guys. I have twice, and every time it's been rough. But that's more a supply and demand issue in Boise. There's just not a ton of single men my age here,
right?
Who are LDS. So I know you date primarily LDS people.
I do now.
So like, you know, a coffee. I mean, you know, date I don't know what the equivalent of that is, like a smoothie.
Yeah, it's rough for my blood sugar though, like smoothies and like when we go to a coffee shop. So I have reactive hypoglycemia. So my blood sugar is very different than someone who has diabetes, for instance. So like if my blood sugar is low, people are like, oh, just have a juice. But juice is actually one of the worst things for someone with reactive hypoglycemia. So anyways, those dates are so hard for me because I would have to eat before and then make sure that my blood sugar has the stamina to handle a sugar drink, which is like kind of hard for me to ever have. Yeah. And so I don't know. I don't like those dates because for me, if I'm going to pay for a sitter, I have already spent the time and the energy getting to know this guy. I want him to take me out to dinner because I want proof that he's willing to put out the effort in me, because my issue is that I will date guys that put in almost no effort, and I'm putting in so much effort. And I just give grace and give grace and give grace. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like my needs just like dwindle. And I like read, you know, those dating experts that are like, just because you can survive doesn't mean that you're not getting your needs met. And I'm like, oh, that really resonates with me. So for me, I have to see their, how much they're willing to put in for me. And I know that's a lot expecting from the get-go, but I don't think a meal is like asking like craziness, especially if I'm paying for a sitter. Yeah. I'm putting on my expensive makeup. I'm taking time to get ready and look nice. You know, all that process is like, to me, the equivalent of them showing up and paying for my meal. You know what I mean?
Well, and I know like you don't want someone to ask you on a date right away. And so maybe that's also the other thing. Like, I like those coffee shop dates because if it's not going well, I can leave in 40 minutes and call it a day. You know what I mean? Like, a meal's going to take at least an hour. And there's usually some sort of like, we should do an activity after a meal. So, but yeah, like, that's probably.
I think it's about compatibility, because I have a lot of friends that are like you, that are like, they want to go on the date right away. If a guy is immediately like, let's go on a date, I get a little taken aback, and I'm like, listen, like, I need more time, because to me it's so much. I have my kid full time, right? Like he's
that's
never
the other key.
Gone. He's always here. So there is no break. It's like, I pay for a sitter if I'm going to go on a date. So that's a huge difference, because a lot of people do share custody. And so, or if they don't have a kid, right? Like they just have to work within their work schedule. So for me, it's like, it's a huge deal for me to go on. I mean, I don't want to like act like, oh my gosh, it's such a big deal for me to go on a date, but it kind of is.
I mean, it's a sacrifice of funds for sure, you know, if nothing else.
Right. So I think it's just ultimately like, and also if a guy gets miffed by me suggesting that we get to know each other more, to me, I don't like that. Of him being like, but I want to go on a date with you now. And I'm like, you don't get that. Like, just because I matched with you, you don't get immediately my time, energy, and money.
Totally.
You know, that's how I view it. So I like the patient ones.
Yeah.
I need someone that's patient. I also, coffee shop dates are great though. I love that, where you can just leave. You can just be like, oh, well, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I know a lot of people that are like you. And so that's why I like to have this discussion, because it's like, it's not like you're a bad person if you want to have a date right away. You know, it's not like I'm viewing anyone like, oh, this is a guy that's a red flag if you ask me out right away. I'm like, no, it's not a red flag.
Yeah.
But it's a yellow flag if you get annoyed with me. I mean, not even a yellow flag. That's a red flag if you're going to get like, throw a
if he doesn't respect the boundaries you put in place, that's a giant red flag.
Yes, right. And again, see, I hesitate. I said it was a yellow flag at first. Why? Because I want to give them grace. But that's what I will give guys a yellow flag when it should be a red flag. And that's what gets me into trouble, is because I am too empathetic. I'm too understanding. And that's why I get the guys that will walk all over me.
Yeah. I'll do that too if I'm ovulating. I'm like, oh, no props. Like, you look fine. I
gotta find a partner. My body's like, sure, that's fine. You have the works. Okay.
Yeah, there's a meme that says like ovulation, the 1 week a month where all those red flags look green, and it's like, how true? How true for me? Mom's just like, who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be?
No, it's a literal, like, physiological thing.
Oh, it's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah. So you like to, you don't need to, you want to chat for a day and then you can go on a date. What makes you want to go on a second date, and what makes you choose to not go on a second date?
That's a good question.
Thank you. Came up with it all by myself.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
if he doesn't validate you on the date, right? If someone doesn't laugh at my jokes, I'm like, that was a good joke. You got to keep up.
You got to keep up. I like, this is gonna not be something you should tell the world, but I'm gonna put it out there. I like when my men are like obsessed with me. Totally. I just like, I want to go on a date and be admired.
Yeah.
And like, there are like, a good date to me. This sounds horrible, but like, if we're sitting there and I'm reading a menu or doing something, I look up and catch you staring, and you do the like, stop, like, whew, stop. There's gonna be a second. If I think you're equally as cute, there's gonna be a second. And if there's like, I need there to be a good vibe. I need them not to be afraid of the fact that I'm Mormon. And that's like my favorite way to tell if there's gonna be a second date. If we haven't already, which I usually have had the Mormon discussion, but if we haven't, I'll bring it up. And then if we have already had it, then I'll talk about like the next time I'm going to the temple or something. And I watch their reaction. And if they are like, oh, that's really cool that you're so passionate about your worship.
Right.
Green flag. Whew. If they're like, oh, you're Mormon, and like give it a joke, that's a yellow flag. I'm still okay with that. There's still wiggle room. But if they're like, oh, you're like really Mormon, it's like, then there's not going to be a second date. Because it's like, if you can't support the bare minimum things in my life, you know, like this is baseline Ashley, then it won't work out. And like you said, I need him to like laugh at my jokes. I'm not the funniest girl in the world, but I'm funny enough. You can laugh. And
give credit where it's due.
Yeah. And then like, if there is some sort of niche thing that they can teach me, I'll probably go on a second date still. Even if I'm not a huge fan, because I'm like, oh, you have a passion that no one else does. First of all, that's rad. Second, I want to learn about that, you know?
I love that. Yeah, for sure. So. I think it's cute when guys get a little nervous to tell me about their hobby. And I'm like, no, I love that. I love that you have a hobby besides, you know, other activities that I just assume men do. I don't know. Ugh. But I love that they found something they're passionate about and they're good at. Yeah, that's hot. Like, let me just tell you, I think guys that are confident are so hot. When I go on a date with a guy and he is self-deprecating in not a funny way, do you know what I mean? Where they are apologetic for how they look, or apologetic for, you know, when they say sorry too much, I'll yell at them. I'm like, stop saying sorry. Like, stop it. And I will kind of lecture them because that's just how I am. And I'm like, you don't have to apologize to me for anything about like your body, weight gain or weight loss, whatever. Like if you're, I just want people to love themselves so badly. And I think that's part of the thing is like, I fought so hard to love myself, to love my body. And I want someone, I'm not saying you have to be just like me, but it's really attractive to me when someone is confident, even when they have insecurities, because we're all going to have them. But to exude confidence in, I like this girl and I'm going to try and date her. Like, I'm like, heck yeah. Like, come for me.
Yeah.
Come after me. Yeah, that's attractive.
I want to be hunted, of course.
For sure. I am a gazelle lost in the woods.
There's a Taylor Swift song about that, but I'm not going to go into that.
I mean, yeah, I love the confidence. I love the quick-witted men that can handle some good banter. That's really hot to me, which sometimes gets me in trouble because it's like, you're charming. I'm all like, whoa. I am like right there. Like, you are intelligent. I love intelligence. Like, not intelligence either where they have to flaunt it or they have to state it. It's like you can just tell that they're intelligent. I'm like, yep, that's a beautiful thing. I'm a sucker for that. So.
I like when you talk to someone about, like, if they have children and you talk about their co-parent and they say positive things about their co-parent. Dude, I'm like, oh, you're getting a second date. Like, and the flip side of that is if they talk too much about their ex in any way, you're like, oh, that's not great.
I know. I went on a date once where the guy bashed his ex-wife for almost the whole time. And I was like, oh, it's still fresh for you. Like, I get where he was at on, when you get divorced and you're on that spectrum. I'm like, okay, I understand where you're at on the journey. I don't want to be a part of this part of your journey. I'll see you when you're over this hump, because that's a hard, I think sometimes with dating, I don't have a problem with people dating at that time, because sometimes it's just good for them to dip their toe in the dating pool and to start trying to date. And you can find people that are empathetic and you can communicate with them and, get it out of your system, so to speak. But I'm just not wanting to be at that stage with someone else because I've been there. But I'm not going to hate on them though, in a way of like, oh, I haven't been there. I'm like, I've totally been there. Like, I feel like that's part of the process at least, but it's not cute to do on a date though. I'm not encouraging it. I think you should talk to your friends about it and not your date. But if it happens, I understand why it does. It's just not the best conversation, but I like it when they do have healthy communication with the co-parenting. Yeah. That's really cool.
Healthy communication in general. Oof.
Yeah.
You're going to come at me using therapy terms?
Oh,
listen,
my gosh.
You're probably going to get kissed. You're probably going to get kissed.
And using them correctly. Like, if you're just saying gaslighting just to show, like, manipulation, I'm like, that's not it. That's not the same thing. Like that. And when saying things like you gaslight yourself. I'm like, you can't gaslight yourself. Like, that. Just stop it. I get crazy about pseudoscience and pseudopsychology. Yeah, I'm just like, no.
And it's just like, stop using terms you heard on TikTok. You can tell the difference between people who are just using like hot button terms or people who are like, hey, I'm working emotionally on myself and I'm, here I am. Man, if you come in as that second person, I'm like, hi, I'm Ashley. Let's start something, because clearly you're in a good place.
Right? I had on my profile like I'm really like hot men that have been to therapy. Like I'm really attracted to. And that, to me, there's nothing more attractive than acknowledging, hey, I've been through some hardships. I need some I need help in some sort of way. I'm humble enough to acknowledge that, and I'm smart enough to go get it from the right source. And then I'm making the effort to work on it. I'm like, gosh, yes.
Seriously. And it's like, oh, you're going to tell me if we get in a conflict, you've got tools in your toolbox already? Whew.
It's beautiful. You're not going to stonewall me and walk away and throw a fit or blame it back on me if I have any sort of emotions.
And if they do, they come back because they realize it. Because
Yes.
we're not looking for perfection. I don't need a perfect dude. But man,
No.
when you find these guys who like, I was having a heavy conversation with a guy one time via text, and he responded with something, and he like put an LOL at the end. And before I could send my next text, he was like, "I'm so sorry for being or for putting humor in there to make it feel more comfortable. I wasn't trying to make light of the situation." And I was like, "Stop it."
You're like, sir,
Sir,
that is beautiful.
stop it, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but don't stop.
I'm over here trying to stay human and not melt away like a popsicle, so I'm going to need you to stop. Yeah.
Like, we can have healthy conflict resolution, and you acknowledge when you've maybe said something that was a little inappropriate. That is, gosh, so freaking, that's masculine. That's masculine energy. That's sexy energy. That's like, give me that type of man. Woo. Yeah. I mean, and then also can like acknowledge when I do something that has hurt them, but they do it in a non like damning way, and
Yeah,
mean
and
like,
without
hey,
shutting down.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you said, I'm not looking for perfection, and I know I'm not gonna say the perfect, because I am a little bit gruff sometimes. Grew up with 4 brothers and a sister that will like beat. My sister could beat up anyone. Like, she's such a tough broad. Like, we all grew up in fear of my sister. So like, I grew up just being like, toughen up, you know, like, and so when I'm around other men, I'm kind of have that gruffness sometimes. And so I know I can say things sometimes that can be a little bit unkind or, you know, aren't appropriate. And so if someone says something to me about that, I'm like, thank you for calling that to my attention. You don't have to be afraid of me. And women aren't supposed to be, you know, you don't worship, you know, you don't need to worship everything I say. I want you to worship me, but also not be afraid to call me out on my crap.
I don't necessarily want to be worshipped. I just want to be obsessed over. Just think about me 24/7.
I don't know the difference in my brain, but
No, fair.
To me, that is worship. I'm like, yes, you can be obsessed with me. And I will equally obsess over them, right?
No,
so
yeah.
it's not a one-way street. It's not
You're
like,
gonna get reciprocation over here.
you will get loved so hard, so intensely.
You're gonna be loved so hard.
You'll be loved so hard. I will smother you. All right, so we covered your physical type.
Oh yeah.
When do you decide to date someone? Like, when would you like be like, all right, this is like let's only be each other's boo?
Oh, that's a hard one. And I think it's different with every group, like every couple. I usually know if I want to pursue someone exclusively after like date 3 or 4. And again, for me, there's a formula to all of this because I am calculated, and that's fine. But so we're going to do like a coffee date the first date, something super cash. Second date, we might go to dinner or a concert or something in that. Third date, I'm going to invite you to my house and make you dinner. I don't go on a lot of third dates. I only do that with people I actually am interested in. And so if I'm going to invite you to my house, you're going to eat in my home, I have to like you. And usually by the end of that evening, I can tell like whether or not I'm going to like you long term.
I agree. Yeah. That's where I'm at too. I think sometimes I've had guys date one, want to be, you know, what is the word I'm looking for? Like
exclusive?
Yeah, exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. There's just no way off the first date. There's no. Because that's just like either love bombing, and I hesitate to use such a buzzword, but to me, if it's
it's a thing.
It's a thing. Yeah. And what's the harm in waiting a couple more dates? I think being patient and having that healthy course of growth in your relationship, there's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, fun fact, because I'm kind of a narcissist hunter, and like I have I find them, they've been in my life, my whole life, been surrounded by certain people that are, you know, it's just, I'm drawn to them like a moth to the flame.
It's comfortable to you.
So I have to research like crazy because I'm autistic. So I need to know because I'm naturally naive. It's just how I am. I'm naturally understanding. I'm naturally like, oh, you said something? Fact. Okay. You know better than me because I'm and so I have to beat it into my brain of what does a narcissist do? And they love bomb. And they, but what I have learned and what I've learned the hard way and what I've learned through studying is that 2 to 3 months, a narcissist cannot hold on to this baseline they've given you. So like in dating, just in general, there will be this, this heightened excitement at the beginning. And then that kind of like teeters. It's so normal because the man feels like, oh, I've won the woman. I can relax. And the woman's like, oh my gosh, he set this baseline for what to expect. And now that's diminishing what's going on. And that's so normal. But there's a difference in narcissism because what happens in the 2 to 3 month mark is when that starts to teeter, they will then turn any conflict back on you. And it's so hard because my empathetic self will be like, you're right. I'm bad. I did something. I expected too much. I wanted to see you once a week. I must be too needy. And then I have to talk to my friends or talk to myself and say, no, this is not what I want in a relationship. Whether or not they're a narcissist doesn't even matter because what I want is a healthy relationship or a compatible relationship. So for me, that's really key too, is even if I jump the gun on a relationship, which I have, I've gone into a relationship too early and then I saw things teeter out and I was like, okay, and that's all right. Whether, I know a lot of people are afraid of narcissists and to an extent I am too, but then you see their true colors come out or just, like I said, compatibility in general. I think a lot in dating, we want to demonize the other person and be like, oh, they're toxic or they're a narcissist or whatever. And ultimately I'm just like, we're just seeking compatibility. Like I believe all is fair in love and war. Like I believe that is like, you're allowed to ghost people. You're allowed to block people. You're allowed to do those things. And if they do that to you, fine. Like they don't owe me anything. That's how I feel. And I'm like going to explain it a little bit longer. So how I feel is on dating apps, a lot of times people will match with you and then they expect you to talk to them every day. They expect that through a match. And that's not my life. Like I don't have that time as much where I'm like, I matched with someone. Therefore I've signed up this unwritten contract of I have to talk to you every day. I feel like that's unfair to expect those types of things. But if I have given you my time and attention and we have gone on dates, I will give you I will talk to you every day. Like I will make plans for you. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like you have to build that relationship, whereas a lot of people just expect it like right off the bat. We matched, therefore you're talking to me every day or I'm out. And I think that does people a disservice. However, my caveat is all is fair in love and war. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to say, hey, you didn't talk to me every day, I'm out. I'm like, hey, fine. Like it's all about compatibility,
Yeah, I think, you and I are very different in that way. I don't necessarily expect someone to talk to me every day, but if I like you, I'm probably going to talk to you every day. And if you're reciprocating my energy, you're probably going to talk to me every day too. You know what I mean? And that can look different. Like with some people, especially if it's during the week that we match, like I'm going to touch base with you in the morning maybe, and then probably after work we can talk for a little bit. And that's it. Like that's what I got, and like after I put my kid to bed. So you've got from like 8:30 to 10 at night.
Like if you match with someone every day, you're going to check in morning. I'm just curious, morning and night.
Yeah, but I try not to start conversations with that many people that I match with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like I'll only match with like 1 or 2 people at a time, have conversations, see if I like where that's going, and then move on if I don't. That's awesome. Just because I don't have the energy to do that with more than 1 or 2 people at a time.
That's what I struggle with, is because sometimes you don't know how many you're going to match with, because if you swipe and then you might get a few more matches after, like the day after, and then I've got a few and maybe they've, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes it's overwhelming for me to give them that much of my energy, and when it might not go in, So like the initial conversation, let's say I start it and they don't ever respond to me, I'm not going to get frustrated at that. And I know a lot of people get frustrated at that, like, oh, I don't get these responses. So that's why I match with more people, because then I'm like, well, I guess it's a numbers game to me. But then I get overwhelmed if there's too many matches.
And I was just thinking about this. I don't really use any other dating sites other than Bumble. And I subscribe to Bumble Plus when I'm like wanting, I'm not subscribed right now, but when I'm like wanting to be on Bumble, I'll subscribe to Bumble Plus and only look at the matches of people who like me. And then I will only match with them when I'm ready to. So that's like awesome. That way I'm only matching with like 2 to 3 people at a time. That's how someone with OCD manages dating apps, because that is like my mastermind moments, right? Like I'm not ready to talk to 8 people, so I'm going to make it so that I can see who likes me, and I'm only swiping from that pool of people, and I'm only going to swipe when I have the bandwidth to talk to them.
I love that, though. That's showing respect, though, like to their time, and I love that. I think that's really awesome that you do that. I know you could do that on Facebook dating, too. For free. Because they show you who likes you for free, because it's all for free.
Well, that would be good then.
Yeah. I love Bumble, though, because I love that you don't wonder who's going to start the conversation. And I love starting the conversation on my level, because a lot of times guys will start the conversation and I'm like, oh, I don't know. So sometimes on Bumble, when I start the conversation and then it immediately gets like crazy sexual, I'm like, and we're done. Like, how did you get from A to B? How did you do that?
Yeah. Unmatch immediately.
So I did want to plug that on our Patreon account, we have dating courses on there for those of you listening. So if you want to support our podcast, you can go listen to the Patreon account. And there's a lot of courses on there. And one of the things we talk about is dating apps. And one of the things that I have a hard time with is like right off the bat, someone compliments your looks, which they would think is a really great thing. But it's hard to have a conversation right from the get-go when I have taken time and energy to create this profile, to show my personality, to show my interests, to give you something to start a conversation on. And then you just tell me I'm pretty. I'm like, thank you. And then that's it. Do you want me to compliment you back? Because I think you're attractive. We matched, and so I can say, oh, I really like your blue eyes. And they say, thank you. The conversation is not going anywhere. And so I'm just like, comment on something off their profile.
Sure.
To me, that's an easy start. I did do this kind of test where I had a bare minimum profile where I had the pictures, but I didn't have a ton of stuff for them to go off of, and the conversations, and then I changed to have more in my bio. The conversation shifted so much. So if you're more of a bare bones person, I would recommend adding more into your bio, because it gives people more things to go off of.
Sure. Yeah.
Fun fact.
That's one thing when I'm scrolling profiles. If you don't have anything on there other than pictures, I don't swipe.
Yeah, I don't either. I had something in my bio, but it wasn't as... Yeah. I'm a little bit more extra, usually. Yeah. So, yeah. Same. I think you're looking for hookups if you just have pictures. That's how I take it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Or if on Bumble, if it says, like, unsure of what they're looking for, it's like, bye, I know what you're looking for, and you can't have it.
You just don't want to admit it.
Keep going. Yeah, it's like, it's fine. We can all read between the lines, but you're not going to get it here, so bye.
It does say on Bumble, like, casual, and I made the mistake of putting casual, and so people are like, oh, you want something casual? And I'm like, oh, not that kind of casual. Not that
You're like, I don't want casual sex. I just want casual dates. Yeah, that's a...
Yeah, just, like, not sure if I'm ready to, like, give someone my time enough to date them full time. That's what I meant, but...
Right.
Yeah, that's... So,
they're like,
all right. Well, what mistakes have you made in dating that you care to share with the world? Because Ashley, you and I, we go big or go home. So I think there's like very few things that we'd be like, oh, I'll share that in case my mom or grandma listens to this.
Right? I was just thinking that, like, maybe this will be that podcast. I'm like, hey, Mom, maybe don't listen to that one.
Yeah.
What big mistakes I've made?
Well, they don't have to be big, I guess. Just what have
No.
you learned, I guess.
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes I made early in dating after divorce was just not letting my needs be known. I had been told for a lot of years in my past relationship that I expected too much, that my needs were too much, that I was too much. And as part of that, when I was first dating, I wanted to just minimize me and my needs and my wants and just like, I'll fit into your box and don't worry about my needs. Which isn't healthy. And what you do is you lose yourself that way in a relationship. And when you lose yourself in a relationship and then lose that relationship, you're left with nothing. And so I think that's probably something that I've learned through dating is to identify my needs and let my needs be known. And that has been very fresh this week, if I'm being very frank. That has been on the forefront of my mind as I navigate things in my life right now. And it's still hard. It's still hard to be like, you're not asking for too much. Your needs are valid and they're minimum. And the love and affection you give are worth the needs you're asking to be met. So, I mean, that's one of them. You know, a more fun mistake I made is, you know, because that one's really heavy. Like, that's ooh, she's been to some therapy over that one. But, like, one of the more fun mistakes, I guess, is, like, not holding the same standard for people across the board. And so sometimes, like, there have been times where I will see a red flag, but because they're really cute, I'm like, no, that's okay. That's a yellow. We'll just see what happens there. And then you know what happens? Bad things. Bad things happen. And they can look like different, that can be anything from manipulation to heartbreak to overly sexual experiences.
Yeah.
Sexual assault, boundaries being pushed in any way, and just all under the umbrella of disrespect. So, like, that's something that is a mistake that I've learned to stop making, is stop thinking that just because someone's cute, their red flag can be a yellow or green. It's just not a thing. What about you? What are some of the mistakes you've... It's really fun to evaluate in your mind.
Ew. Oh, my mistakes. It's interesting because I look back on when I first started dating and I was so worried. The reason I was so hesitant to start dating is because I get hooked so quickly, so intensely, and I want them to make my life good. Like, it's like all the pain that I have in my life, I want you to fix that. Like, I have this, I call it my Disney princess complex, where I'm like, if I'm pretty enough and I will find my Prince Charming and he will solve everything. And when I got married, I thought that's what happened, is that I would get married and I would live happily ever after. And then it wasn't like that. And so I knew I still had that in me of like,
that damsel in distress.
Wanting a man to, you know, like, my life will be complete when I find a man. And I think it's hard because we know the plan of salvation is about families. It's about getting married and having kids. So that's not bad to want to get married, right? There's this fine line somewhere between wanting that because that's the plan of salvation, but also understanding that my life is fantastic and I have a lot of wonderful things about it. So when I first started dating, like you, I would ignore red flags or things that, you know, disrespect. Because I think it's hard when we have all these buzzwords, they work, they make sense. You can use gaslighting and it actually makes sense. I have been gaslighted by men and women, you know, but it's so used that I'm like, okay, what are other ways to explain this? And so with red flags, that's what I'm doing right now, is thinking, what are other ways to explain what is a red flag? And that's disrespectful. that like if they're being disrespectful, if they are pushing my boundaries, if they are not listening to my needs, if we are if I'm just not a priority, if I'm not even in the top 5, you know, like Taylor Swift says.
Yeah.
Another Taylor Swift moment. The mistakes that I've made.
There's been like 5 Taylor Swift moments, by the way, but that's another subject.
You should start calling them out, quote it, and we'll move on.
I mean, maybe we can put like a little graphic right here that's like 1 Swiftie,
Taylor
2
Swift.
Swiftie, 3 Swiftie.
How many Swiftie moments can we have?
I bet I'd find more
the
than
quote
you.
where it's like, you know, where that whole song of Bejeweled, where she says, "Can you quote it for me?" The basement.
Which part? Don't put me in the basement of your, when I want the penthouse of your heart. Mm-hmm. Diamonds in my eyes. I polish up real nice.
And then the top 5 part where you're not in their top 5.
Putting someone first only works when you're in their top 5.
There it is.
And by the way, I'm going out tonight.
Yes. See, that song Bejeweled was my aha. Like I was like, I'm feeling what Taylor Swift is feeling, is like, I bought you those shoes and then you walk all over. You walk all over me in those shoes that I bought you, you know? And I'm just like, that's how I felt. So I make these mistakes of giving them everything, giving them my time, giving my attention, giving them my gas money, you know, and then I'm not even in their top 5, even though we're dating, even though I should be in their top 5. And then they want to say to me, you're a little too much expecting to be in my top 5, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's why I've made these changes in my life of like, okay, well then you're going to take me out to dinner and you're going to drive to where I live. You know, I need to see that effort on your end because I know I'm willing to give so much to you, but I need to find someone that's willing to do the same. Yeah. So there's my safer answer to that, to not have to like, I feel like when I ask guys, like, what are your crazy dating experiences or what's hard about dating? It's so different than female dating. It's like, 100%. I was almost killed, you know, like I've been almost killed on dates before, like a semi-automatic rifle, you know, this man had, you know, things like that. It's like, I have almost died. So it is hard to understand just how different dating can be sometimes.
Sure. I wanted to circle back. You pointed to something that I think is a very common mistake for people post-divorce, is that especially right after divorce, sometimes you start dating people to fill a void, to make your life better, to XYZ, right? Yeah. And I think that was a mistake I learned a really hard way, that sometimes you just need to be able to fill the voids yourself, to find what works for you, to fill. And then when you're at that baseline and you can start dating because you want to actually enjoy sharing this cool life that you have with someone else, I think that's like when the magic happens. Or so I'm told. I don't know. I'm trying real hard, but I feel like I'm finally at that place in my life, you know, where like now when I'm dating someone, it's not because I want you to make things better. I don't want you to, like, everything's pretty good, you know, like life is still hard. I cry all the time, but like things are pretty good over here. And I want to be able to share that with someone, not have them come in and fill the holes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I really have noticed when I let the Savior in my life in a very thick and real way, then I am not feeling so desperate or lonely or I really need a partner or I'm going to die. Like, I am partnered with God. I'm sealed to God. And then I have the Savior with me always to help me and strengthen me. That's why I have my Jesus wall in my house. I have this wall that's like 20 feet tall of just Jesus pictures. And I'll sit on my stairs and I'm just like, okay, I have a Savior. This is real. And when I really let him in my life, when I really let him take that pain and hold the pain and sit with me and be yoked with me, dating is really difficult. sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very heavy, and it can be very like it's just painful and exhausting and frustrating and all those things. And it's like, okay, like the Savior's feeling this with me. He loves me unconditionally, and I can love myself unconditionally. And it's hard when you learn these mistakes and you make these mistakes, and you might feel stupid about it, or there's really harsh ramifications for some mistakes, like safety wise. So it's hard to not beat yourself up for it. And then I turn to the Savior, and he's not looking at me like that. He's not shaming me. He's supporting me. He's encouraging me. I think my secret sauce to dating is turning to God and talking to him about how to date and what is appropriate for me.
Yeah. My favorite thing is, let's say that because men kind of come into my life in batches when I'm on dating apps, right? So like you look at the batch and you're like, these all seem like valid options. And then you like, when I take it to God and I'm like, who here is valid options? I see things in a whole other light. And God loves all these people that I'm dating because he loves every human alive. But he'll also let me know who's more compatible with me. And we weed out the people who aren't pretty quick,
That's real. It's
It's
real.
so real. Yeah.
God really does that. I still think about this one guy. I had a hard time I had to text and block because I had to tell him, I'm sorry, I'm moving on. We weren't like officially dating or anything. And it's still hard for me to not, because Heavenly Father was like, this is not
it.
This isn't what you think it is, because I wanted it to be something. And he's like, it's not going to be that way. There's heartache that you don't need to have on that road. And so every day that I am not unblocking that man and texting him again, I'm like, okay, Heavenly Father, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting this process, because it is hard to do this. I mean, I don't think we're meant to do it alone, because he knows the conversations that are being had that we are not around for. He knows, like you said, he loves everyone, but that that doesn't mean that we're compatible.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that there's also value in realizing, like, dating doesn't need to feel as personal as it sometimes does. Like when we're talking about that compatibility, I think that's such a big thing to realize. Like, you're going out there, you're getting to know people, and you're not going to be compatible with someone just because you think they're cute and they think you're cute. That's not it, man. And so,
yeah, all is fair in love and war. I really believe that.
Yeah. And it's just not, it doesn't have to be personal. It's going to feel personal because you're going to think like, was I not enough? Was I not this? But no, you just weren't compatible, I had a conversation this week with a guy that I kind of dated off and on for the last few months. And I told him, I was like, I just don't think we're compatible. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. Right. We just keep trying to fit this like triangle in a square, and it's not going to work,
Right.
You have different communication styles. I have different communication styles. And when I'm with you, I find myself not being that into you because of it. Right. And so it's just like, and it's not personal, it doesn't need to be. If anything, you're just not wasting people's time further, It's like,
100% agree with you.
You want to hold on to this for another year and end it messy when both of our hearts are broken? Like, let's call it here. This isn't super great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I say I'm okay with people ghosting, because I'm like, okay, like, you want out, you can have out. Like, I don't need a full, and you can disagree with me. Anyone can disagree with me, but I don't need a full essay on why I wasn't good enough for someone. I don't need that. I can ask if I want to. And I could be like, hey, can I just know why you don't think we're compatible? But I don't need it. Yeah. Sometimes I might. But so that's why I'm okay with ghosting, because I'm like, yeah, you're allowed to walk out of my life with no explanation. You don't owe me anything. Yeah. And I'm okay with people disagreeing again. But that's why I say we're all different types of humans. We're going to come from all different types of places and different communication styles, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. But I also think you nailed it. Don't take it so personally. If we can, like, accomplish that, like, dating will be easier if we just go, okay, it's not about me. I am good enough. You are good enough. You are.
It's just like trying on shoes, like I can walk into Dillard's and find 15 pairs of shoes that I really like, and only 2 will be like check all the boxes of what I'm looking for. That
Right.
doesn't mean those other shoes aren't great. That doesn't mean that they don't look
But you
beautiful.
don't need 15 husbands.
Right. And they just might not match all my outfits. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to wear you often. And so, anyways, that's
I love that. I love that. And yeah, some shoes clash in a certain outfit. So yeah, let's not force it. Yeah. I'm only looking for one man. I only want to date one guy. I only want to marry one guy. You know, I don't need to be compatible with so many guys. So
yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening to our podcast this week. I hope that we have offended you and made you mad, so you never get. I'm just kidding.
Well, hopefully no one that I've dated recently is listening. Whoops.
I know. I'm thinking about that too. I'm like, well, now he knows. No.
So fine.
So good. Anyways, but again, the Patreon account. So there are a lot of courses on there. I've been on the news a couple times. I had a business called the Online Dating Guru. So those courses are on the dating website. And I've done studies and research on what works on dating apps and what doesn't. So it's not just my personal opinion that if you disagree with my personal opinion, that's fine. But I've also done research, so that will be on there. If you're interested, we would love your support. And there are other ways to support us as well. We have a website coming out with a little gift shop that you can be buying things, but that's more in the future. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Ashley, do you have any final thoughts?
Oh man, if you're out there in the dating world, just like stay the course. It gets better. That's all I have to say. Like, man, there is so much heartache and so much sorrow in that, but just stay the course. It gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you need to give up, and it's fine to take breaks.
Yes.
Often as you need.
All the breaks.
All the breaks. Lots of breaks. Lots of breakups. No.
So many. It's fine. We're good.
All's well that ends well.
So I'm told.
So, yeah, exactly. So we're told, right? Yeah. I know. Look at us. Single ladies.
Like that.
Anyways. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next Friday.
Bye.
Bye.
We did it.